Have you ever thought that your generosity might actually be hurting your children more than helping them? Imagine this: you're about to retire, and you're planning to give your children a head start. Maybe a large sum of money or a property, after all. Isn't that what every good parent wants to do? But what if I told you that giving too much can be like overwatering a plant? Instead of helping it thrive, you could be drowning it, preventing it from growing strong and independent. Today, we're diving into the 7 things you should never give your adult children if you want to help them become truly independent and thrive. Let's go deeper together. 1. The dangers of giving too much. Understanding healthy boundaries. Meet Julia, a newly retired woman filled with love and excitement for the next phase of her life. Julia has always dedicated herself to her children. And now, with her upcoming retirement, she wants to ensure they have a great future. She thinks about gifting her son, Liam, a large sum of money to help him with whatever he might need. Sounds thoughtful, right? But before she could move forward with her plan, her wise neighbor Peter gave her a piece of advice that she couldn't ignore. He said, "Julia, sometimes giving too much is like pouring water endlessly into a plant. Instead of helping it grow, you may drown it." Generosity can indeed come with unexpected consequences. We often act on our deep desire to help and protect our children without realizing that we may be creating challenges for them down the road. Julia was on the verge of unknowingly setting a trap for her son, a trap of dependence. While her intentions were pure, she risked keeping Liam from developing his own strength and independence. This is a scenario that happens too often. It is critical for parents to understand that there is a balance between supporting their children and giving them too much. Healthy boundaries are about knowing when to step in and when to step back. It's not about refusing to help, it's about helping in the right ways that foster long-term growth rather than temporary comfort. 2. The consequences of easy money. The inheritance syndrome. Julia decided to go ahead and give Liam a significant sum of money after her retirement. She genuinely thought, with this, Liam can fulfill all his dreams. Excited by the sudden windfall, Liam made a decision that would set off a series of events that no one had expected. He quit his job. He thought to himself, "Why do I need to keep working when I have money now?" This, without realizing it, put Liam into a comfort zone where he stopped pushing himself. Receiving money without effort can often lead to unintended consequences. Liam was thrilled initially. He felt liberated from the daily grind. He had dreams. Yes. But as days turned into weeks, and weeks into months, something began to shift. He no longer felt the pressure to wake up early, to work toward his goals, or to solve problems creatively. What used to be an inner drive gradually turned into complacency. The spark that had once defined him slowly began to fade. This phenomenon is not rare, it even has a name: the rich heir syndrome. Many wealthy families see their wealth diminish across generations. And this isn't coincidental. According to Dr. Roy Williams, author of Preparing Your Kids for $1 Billion, nearly 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation, and 90% by the third. The reason? Children who are handed everything without effort often fail to develop the skills to maintain or grow that wealth. To put it another way, imagine if you were given a giant cake every day. Initially, it's thrilling, right? But as time goes by, the excitement fades, and you lose the appreciation for the cake. You also never learn to bake your own cake. The same goes for money. It starts as a blessing but can become a burden without proper guidance. Liam's case is a classic example of this. Instead of using the money to invest in a business or continue his personal growth, he chose the path of least resistance, quitting his job. Without challenges to overcome, Liam's potential remained untapped. As parents, the goal should not be to provide all the answers or easy routes. Instead, we should strive to empower our children with the skills and tools to create their own paths, even if that means they face challenges along the way. It's not too late, though. Julia could have taken a different approach. Instead of giving Liam a lump sum, she could have invested in a joint business venture with him. This way, not only would Liam have had the financial support he needed, but he would also have learned about running a business, the importance of discipline, and the satisfaction of personal achievement. True support isn't about making everything easy, it's about creating an environment where growth, both financially and personally, is nurtured. The philosopher Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has little, but he who craves more, that is poor." Liam had much, but in losing his purpose, he found himself poorer than ever. 3. The Trap of Gifted Properties, a story about real estate. Julia also wanted to surprise her daughter Emma with a beautiful beach house that she had recently inherited. She thought to herself, "Emma will love this place. She'll enjoy peaceful summers here with her family." Emma was thrilled at first, after all. Who wouldn't be excited by the idea of owning a beach house? But what neither of them anticipated was the significant financial burden that came with the gift. Let's consider the Martinez family. They experienced a similar scenario. When Grandpa Martinez passed away, he left the family an old, charming countryside property. It was a place filled with happy memories of summer gatherings and festive holidays, and the entire family was excited to have it passed down to them. But soon, what seemed like a gesture of love became a battleground. Who would pay for the renovations? Who would be responsible for maintenance costs? Should they sell it or keep it? Family gatherings transformed from joyful events into heated debates about who should bear the burden. The emotional weight of the property, along with the financial responsibility, turned a precious heirloom into a source of resentment. Eventually, the stress fractured relationships that had been strong for decades. Similar to the Martinez family's situation, Emma began to realize that owning a property is not as simple as enjoying the sunsets. Property taxes, repair costs, and ongoing maintenance turned what was supposed to be a dream into a financial nightmare. Julia, in her desire to be generous, had overlooked the hidden costs and obligations that accompanied her gift. According to a recent study, inherited properties often end up as family disputes rather than blessings. And it's easy to see why. Most of the time, people inherit property without understanding the full picture, including the costs, taxes, and management involved. This doesn't mean that giving property is inherently bad. The problem lies in doing so without a plan. If Julia had involved Emma in the decision-making process, they could have looked at different options together, like turning the property into a rental to help cover maintenance costs, or even selling it to reinvest in something more manageable. It's about communication, education, and understanding that wealth, in any form, requires responsibility. When giving something as significant as property, it's essential to ensure that the recipient is both prepared and interested. The real gift here is not the house itself, but the opportunity to collaborate, to plan together, and to prepare for what ownership truly means. As Epictetus wisely said, wealth does not consist in having great possessions, but in having few wants. The real lesson lies not in the possession itself, but in the preparation, responsibility, and understanding that accompany it. 4. The effects of helicopter parenting: strengthening emotional maturity. Julia, like many parents, wanted to make sure her children never struggled. She was always ready to swoop in and save the day, whether it was a minor school issue or a significant life decision. Her instinct was to protect, to shield her children from pain or discomfort. This style of parenting, commonly referred to as helicopter parenting, stems from love but can have damaging effects. Imagine having a personal trainer at the gym who lifts all the weights for you. You'd never build muscle, right? The same goes for emotional strength. If a child is never allowed to struggle, never allowed to face challenges on their own, they never develop the emotional muscles needed to cope with life's inevitable difficulties. A study conducted by the University of Florida found that young adults raised by overly protective parents often struggle significantly when faced with the stresses and demands of everyday life. It's as if they were given a roadmap for life but had their compass taken away. Liam, Julia's oldest son, called her in a panic every time he faced a challenge at work, whether it was an issue with a colleague or a decision he had to make. He couldn't bring himself to act without first getting his mother's input. Emma, on the other hand, avoided any situation that felt uncomfortable, like applying for a promotion or moving to a new city. She was paralyzed by the thought of failure, something Julia had unknowingly instilled in her by always stepping in to avoid mistakes. But Julia's youngest, Ryan, provided an unexpected twist. Ryan was always watching his older siblings and their interactions with their mother. He learned that his mother would always help if he let her. But this time, Julia had started to reflect on her approach. She began stepping back and allowing Ryan to make decisions without interference. When Ryan came to her, Julia now responded differently. Instead of providing an immediate solution, she would ask, "What do you think you should do?" This shift in approach was a game changer for Ryan. Slowly, he started to rely on his own judgment, and the results were amazing. He began to navigate challenges at work, stood up for himself, and even made a major decision to move to another city for a job opportunity. Julia's choice to take a step back gave Ryan the confidence he needed. Psychologist Alfredo Oliva explains, "Overprotection may seem like love, but in reality, it is fear that our children will suffer, fear that they will fail. But failure and suffering are crucial parts of growth. When we deny our children the opportunity to fail, we deny them the ability to learn, to grow, and to become resilient." As Khalil Gibran once said, "Your children are not your children, they are the sons and daughters of life longing for itself. We are here to guide, not to control. We need to give them the tools and the opportunity to find their own way." Julia's journey toward embracing this philosophy became a turning point, not just for her, but for her children. 5. The dangers of unsolicited advice: how listening can heal. Like many parents, Julia loved giving advice to her children. She believed it was her way of helping, of preventing them from making mistakes she had made. Liam. You should change jobs, Emma. Why don't you move closer to home, Ryan? I think you should rethink your haircut. Little did she know. Her constant suggestions were slowly pushing her children away. While her intentions were pure, the impact was far from it. Psychologist Dr. Maria Martinez notes that unsolicited advice often sends the underlying message: I don't trust you to make your own decisions. This can create tension and resentment, even when the advice is well-meaning. The breaking point came when Ryan, the youngest, decided to distance himself from his mother. He stopped calling as often, started skipping family dinners, and avoided her input. Emma, who used to call her mother multiple times a week, now reduced their conversations to small talk. Even Liam, the most dependent of the three, started to push back, responding to Julia's advice with short, curt answers. Julia realized something needed to change. During one particularly lonely family dinner, Julia was left with just Liam, who finally shared, Mom, Emma and Ryan are avoiding these dinners because they feel like they're never good enough. That was the wake-up call Julia needed. It was then that she remembered a quote from Epictetus: we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. From that day forward, Julia made a conscious effort to listen more. Instead of jumping in with advice, she asked open-ended questions like, how do you feel about that, or what do you think you should do? The results were astonishing. Her children began to open up more, and their relationships grew deeper and more connected. A study from the University of Michigan found that young adults whose parents respected their autonomy reported significantly higher levels of satisfaction in their relationships. Julia learned that being a good parent doesn't mean always knowing the answers. It means creating a space where her children could express themselves without fear of judgment. 6. Comparisons among siblings, the invisible wounds. Julia often fell into the trap of comparing her children to each other, believing she was encouraging them to do better. Ryan, why can't you be more organized like Emma or Liam? When I was your age, I was already settled in my career. She thought she was motivating her children, but in reality, she was causing unseen wounds that ran deep. Take, for instance, the Parker family. Their parents always praised their eldest son, James, for his professional success. But this constant comparison made their daughter, Sophie, feel inadequate. No matter how much she achieved, she always felt overshadowed by her brother. This led to rivalry, resentment, and a divide between siblings who once shared a close bond. One family dinner, tensions boiled over. Ryan, who had always been the quiet one, finally spoke up. Why do you always compare us? Mom, Emma is perfect. Liam is successful. And what am I? The one who can never measure up. The room fell silent. This was a pivotal moment for Julia. She realized that her words, meant to inspire, had been hurting her children deeply. A study from the University of Illinois found that children who are frequently compared to their siblings often grow up with higher levels of anxiety and lower self-esteem. These comparisons create invisible walls between siblings, walls that can be challenging to tear down later in life. Determined to make a change, Julia sought professional help. She learned the importance of recognizing each child's unique strengths. Instead of comparing, she began to acknowledge and praise each child individually for their accomplishments. Ryan, I love the creativity you put into your projects. Emma, your organizational skills are remarkable. Liam, your perseverance is something I truly admire. Slowly but surely, the atmosphere at home began to change. The siblings started to support each other instead of compete. Family dinners were filled with laughter and connection rather than tension. 7. The weight of exaggerated expectations easing the burden. Expectations can be like balloons if you inflate them too much. They eventually burst. Julia had always envisioned certain paths for her children, Ryan. The artist, Emma. The lawyer, Liam. The businessman. She wanted the best for them. But her expectations had become a heavy burden. Lily, Julia's daughter, had always been academically inclined. From a young age, Julia would tell her, "You're going to be the best lawyer." I know it. But as Lily grew older, she began to feel suffocated by the pressure. The expectations her mother had set for her weighed heavily. And by the time she reached college, she was suffering from anxiety and panic attacks. Lily wasn't the only one struggling. Ryan, the artist, realized that painting wasn't his passion. He wanted to explore music. But every time he tried to talk to his mom about it, he saw the disappointment in her eyes. It was during a family dinner that Julia had a moment of clarity. Ryan announced that he was quitting painting to join a band. Instead of feeling disappointed, Julia felt relieved. She realized that true love means allowing her children to follow their own paths, not the paths she had chosen for them. Psychologist Carol Dweck, in her theory of the growth mindset, explains that people thrive when they are allowed to pursue their own interests and passions, rather than being pushed into roles that don't fit them. Over time, Julia's mindset shifted. She let go of the image she had for each of her children and embraced who they truly were. This allowed each child to explore their passions without fear of judgment or failure. Ryan joined a band and thrived as a musician. Lily decided to pursue psychology instead of law. And Liam, the former businessman, opened a restaurant. It wasn't easy, but the result was worth it. Julia learned that her role as a parent wasn't to dictate her children's futures, but to provide a foundation of support and love that would help them build their own dreams. 8. Love with healthy boundaries, the path to true independence. Julia's story is one of transformation, a transformation rooted in the realization that true love does not mean giving endlessly or controlling every aspect of your children's lives. True love means respecting their individuality, setting healthy boundaries, and supporting them in their journey toward independence. It means letting them fall, letting them learn, and being there to cheer them on when they get back up. If there's one thing we should all take from Julia's journey, it's that the greatest gift we can give our children isn't money, properties, or even our constant help. It's the belief that they can face life's challenges, make their own decisions, and live fulfilling lives on their terms. If you found value in this story, consider leaving a comment below. Share this video with your friends and family to start a conversation about what true love and support look like in a family. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to stay updated with our future content. Together, we can create stronger, more loving families that empower every individual to thrive.